Call the meeting to order for Wicomico County Council Legislative Session 2024-15 for July 2nd, 2024. Those that like to stand and join us in the Lord's Prayer and pledge allegiance, please do.
Our Father, who art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our
trespasses,
as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Entertain a motion from council to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second? Any corrections? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Consent agenda passes unanimously. At this time, we now have a proclamation to recognize the month of July as National Parks and Recreation Month. I believe Mr. Steve Miller, there he is. Hey, Steve, how are you? Is here to accept as being presented by Councilman at Large James Wynn.
Good to see you again. Okay, we have a proclamation for National Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of our communities and are vitally important to establishing and maintaining quality of life, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. And whereas parks and recreation programs provide recreation services to improve the health of citizens and build healthy communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, and whereas park and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction, and whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for citizens to connect with nature and recreate outdoors, and whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Park and Recreation Month and recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now, therefore, the Wicomico County Council hereby designate the month of July 2024 as National Parks and Recreation Month in Wicomico County. Yeah,
Thank you, Councilman Wynn and members of the council. Thank you for the proclamation, and I do want to thank you for the continued support of recreation parks. I know we've invested a lot in the last several years. We've accomplished a lot and have a lot more to accomplish in the future. Very exciting. And on behalf of the staff, we have a lot of great people that work real hard. On behalf of the citizens, thank you for this proclamation and for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Benson.
Good evening, Council President, County Council. We're here for a public hearing on Legislative Bill 2024-03 to amend the Wicomico County Code, Chapter 179, Regulations for Parks and Recreational Facilities. I know Mr. Miller's here. It says Mr. Wilbur, but I don't see Mr. Willer, but Mr. Miller. Is it?
This time, we open the floor for a public hearing on legislative bill number 2024-03. If you have any comments that you'd like to make in reference to this legislative bill, come to the podium, please. State your name, your county of residence, and your concerns.
Jim Atkins, Wicomico County. Real short and sweet. I just want to thank Mr. Miller. There's been some items that have been changed and updated in this that the council asked for, that private citizens have asked for. And Mr. Miller has researched it, done the due diligence, and correct things that'll make it better for the community. So I just want to extend our appreciation for what he's done.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Any other public comment?
I had a question, I'm sorry. Is this document that was on the table there, is that accurate, or is that the document that something has been changed?
Well, that is the original, but it will be amended at the table tonight. There are several recommendations that came in just within the last 24 hours that we're looking to make amendments for.
We're not speaking to things that we can't see.
I understand. Any other comments? Seeing none, that concludes the public comments for the public hearing for Legislative Bill 2024-03. Entertain a motion from council to approve Legislative Bill 2024-03. Need a motion? So moved. Second? Second. Okay, discussion. Good evening, Mr. Miller, Mr. Welber. Just for the, if you could state for the record your position, your name and your position.
Paul Welber, County Attorney.
Steve Miller, Director of Recreation, Parks, and Tourism.
Thank you. Mr. Welber, you had some recommendations, or Mr. Miller? I'll give either one of you the floor, whoever would like to start.
Go ahead.
Okay, I think the council has a list of proposed amendments to this bill. If you'd like, I'll read through them. Would you like?
Yes, I think you could do that relatively
Okay.
quick.
To Section 179-1 definitions, we're adding a definition of concealed carry permit, which is a valid permit issued pursuant to Title V, Subtitle 3 of the Public Safety Article of the Maryland Annotated Code. Then in Section 179-3, the regulations, under Section A2, there's going to be an adjustment on hours to provide that the general public will have access to public waterways after hours, which is to say, county harbor facilities may be accessible after hours to approved slip renters for the sole purpose of accessing their vehicles at the locations, or to the general public for the sole purpose of accessing public waterways through county-owned boat ramps. Then old language, after hours access for any other purpose must be approved in advance by the department. Then further down, there's firearms. There's further adjustments from the prior language, except it says, except as set forth in subsection R, no person shall carry or possess a firearm on park property except a law enforcement officer or a person with a concealed carry permit, or discharge a firearm on park property except as permitted by state law.
Mr. Wilbur, what I have, instead of concealed carry permit, I'm assuming it's been amended for a wear and carry permit? Is that correct, Mrs. Hurley?
Yeah, I spoke to Mr. Benson earlier today about the actual verbiage for that, and it's my understanding that it's referenced in the state of Maryland as wear and carry.
That's correct. That's the way the state refers to it, wear and carry permit.
Well, that definition change should be in both the definition section, so 179-1.
There's two correct, there's two there, and there's two
And further down,
in section 3, there's
in
one.
under the firearm section, it should say wear and carry.
Okay. There's 4 references to it.
Yeah, there are 4.
Okay. Then under smoking, the existing language has an additional sentence. Smoking or vaping is prohibited inside all county buildings and indoor facilities and is prohibited within 25 feet of building entries, outdoor intakes, and operable windows. Smoking or vaping should not occur in certain outdoor spaces such as bleacher areas, concession stands, or other areas designated by the county as non-smoking areas. These designated areas will be communicated to the public through on-site signage. Use of cannabis in public parks must follow all local, state, and federal laws. And this additional sentence is, use of cannabis in public parks is prohibited. And then in that same section, looks like we've covered it here. Yeah, section Y. I don't seem to have that one. Have you got that one? Yeah, okay. Under traffic, let's see. The operation of all motorized vehicles on park property shall be in compliance with all applicable laws and regulations. That's paragraph 1 or sentence 1. Sentence 2, instruction from a department employee or police officer by gesture or otherwise to reduce the speed of a vehicle, to bring it to a stop, to alter its direction, or to remove it from a restricted area shall immediately be obeyed by the operator or owner of the vehicle. Sentence 3, no person shall operate any motorized vehicle in excess of 25 miles per hour unless otherwise posted or directed. And then 4, where the change is, says motorized vehicles shall only be operated on park properties in areas approved for such use, including roads, parking lots, or driveways. And then 5 and 6 were buses, trucks, and commercial vehicles with commercial marking or tools of trade, with the exception of taxi cabs and tool trucks. On service calls, 2 disabled vehicles shall not be operated on park property unless a permit has been obtained from the department. And sentence 6 is no person shall operate a vehicle in such a manner as to block or partially block any bicycle, hiker, bridle path, or access road. And then section 179.11 about permits, the language has been changed to require county council approval upon recommendation of the Recreation Commission. And there you have it.
Questions from council?
Mr. President, now that the audience has been told that on
Yeah,
the additions.
Yeah, it's a good
Can we allow
idea.
some
That's a good idea.
public
We don't, normally the public comments are during public comment period, but Mr. Ebert made a very good point that how do we know what to talk about if we haven't heard it yet or we haven't read it yet? So, Mr. Ebert, if you do have a comment that you'd like to make, a reference to anything you've seen, or if you're fine with what you've heard, it is your option. We would certainly open that option and open the floor up for anybody that had a comment. You okay? Yes. Yeah, thanks. I'll tell you.
Good evening. I'm John Ebert, a resident of Salisbury in Wicomico County. If I'd realized I was going to speak, I would have worn long pants. So please.
Just stay right where you are, nobody can see.
That's fine. I just cannot understand how in our current situation in this country regarding firearms in public places that you are willing to allow firearms in our parks. I personally am not comfortable if I knew that there were strangers, people who are strangers to me, are carrying weapons at a place that I am recreating. I would feel very uncomfortable, as I think many people would feel. It doesn't give me a sense of security knowing that this stranger over here happens to have a weapon. That park police and people in responsibility, positions of responsibility, have those weapons to protect the general public. Yeah, I agree with that absolutely. But letting anybody who's managed to get a permit, which is not that difficult, to be allowed in these places where people are supposed to be free of concerns for their safety or their well-being, I just don't see how we could approve such a thing, and that it's even presented is sort of bothersome to me. That's my personal opinion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ebert.
My name's Joe White. I'm a resident of Wicomico County. I'm a volunteer with the Parks and Rec Department with softball. I've umpired several games as a volunteer. And I actually disagree with Mr. Ebert. It's actually very hard in this state to get a wear and carry permit. I have my back turned to several people who actually have the guts to heckle me as a volunteer. And although I don't carry, and for personal reasons, I like the fact that someone who might be crazy enough to really care about a 9-year-old softball game to to be violent might have to think that someone else there who is properly trained, properly vetted by this state may be carrying it. So they're not a stranger. The folks in the stands who have the guts to heckle a volunteer are the strangers. So I actually support having the wear and carry in this regulations. I've been at the Parks and Rec meeting. They've had a great discussion, and just like was said earlier, I think Director Miller's team has done a nice job. This should stay.
Mr. White. Other comments?
Good evening. My name's Mary Hubner, and among other things, I'm a bird watcher, and I go to the parks pretty regularly, and I love our parks, and I feel really safe in our parks, and I go to Winter Place quite a bit because I'm doing a birding project, and I go by myself, and I'm usually the only one in the park, and every now and then I get a funny feeling, and even up at Parker Fields, where there's a lot of kids all the time, I do go in the woods, and I'm really glad to know nobody's in there with a gun. I mean, I'm afraid of guns. So, I take a senior citizen group to the parks. We do hikes, and we've done Winter Place, Pemberton, Pirates Wharf. We love the parks, but we love them as they are. We don't need guns in our parks. Thank you. Oh, and the Surgeon General also just put out an alert or whatever that gun violence is a public health threat. So I think we have to take that into consideration too. Thank you.
Hubner.
Good evening, Joe Venosa, Wicomico County. As a compromise, what if we just let umpires have guns?
I get it.
Just throw it out. Anybody who's worked in recs knows what I'm talking about. No, in all seriousness, though, I think realistically, even though we may not be comfortable with it, it is unfortunately increasingly legal. It's interesting as a historian to think that we had more gun restrictions literally in the Wild West than we do now. We've, as a society, I think, made that choice, unfortunately. I will say, though, just as a basic fact, unfortunately, anybody who was going to bring a gun really can't be stopped legally. If somebody's going to bring a gun, like, as you said, we really can't do anything about that. So if somebody's gone through the training with concealed carry, I would say that's at least better than not. Again, I'm from the old school where if a person's going after my child, I'd rather beat them to death with my hands than use a gun, but I'm old school. So I don't really think it's going to matter much, but I do think that given that we really can't stop it, we might as well try to work within the framework. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Venosa.
Good evening, everyone. Megan Outen, Wicomico County resident. I just wanted to flag a couple things to the council as we have this discussion. And now, mind you, I don't have any issues with concealed carry. Many relatives in my family have concealed carry permits. Myself, maybe one day, as a single woman, I'm full for people being able to defend themselves. So this isn't a conversation on whether I believe people should have access to guns. It's what's currently happening at the state level. So for anyone who's aware, Maryland passed a law in 2023, the Gun Safety Act. So I just wanted to flag this. It seems like the state has already kind of made this decision pretty clear. We're not allowed to have guns concealed otherwise in our parks. So I just wanted to flag that because it seems like we might be opening ourselves up to some kind of liability, some potential lawsuit, some potential waste of county resources and funds. So just wanted to flag that here for the council.
That may be state parks.
It's all parks.
Robert Taylor,
It's state parks.
Yeah, Robert Taylor, county resident. I just want to follow up on that, and I don't have a position on it one way or the other. But it does strike me that it would be a good idea to be consistent with the regulations in the state parks and perhaps the national parks, assuming they're congruent, and not be the odd man out. So I think, does anybody here tonight, Mr. Miller, Mr. Wilbur, have any idea about the national parks, Assateague,
Blackwater, can you carry a gun there? I mean,
I
that
don't
story, I don't know.
Sure, I don't.
Maybe somebody ought to find out, because I think consistency is probably the best answer to this. Thank
You can actually hunt at Assateague, so there's
Well,
guns allowed on
You
Assateague.
probably need a permit, though, I suspect, for that. So I'm talking about
You
the
need a
general, I'm
license.
talking about the general visitors.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any other comments?
Mike Goldberg, Wicomico County. Concealed carry permit holders are trained, they are vetted, their backgrounds are checked. These are trusted people, to me, as trusted as any police officer is. The simple fact is that bad guys don't obey the laws. So when you make it illegal to bring a gun into a park, you are unprotected because the bad guy's going to bring it in anyway. Hey, here's an idea. Why don't we make drugs illegal, and then nobody will get drugs? It's the same principle applies here. We do have Second Amendment rights. We should be able to exercise them freely. Keep in mind that those jurisdictions that have the most restrictive gun laws have the highest rates of gun crime. Those jurisdictions with the most liberal gun laws have the lowest rates of gun crime. Why is that? Because in the more liberalized jurisdictions, a bad guy knows that there's a pretty good chance that if he's going to commit a crime, that the guy he's going up against may be armed. That's where we find our safety. Thanks.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Monica Brooks, Wicomico County resident and president of Wicomico County NAACP. Actually, for this particular thing, I'm kind of in agreement with one of the things that Megan said was what we have already in state law is kind of trickling down to what we have here. This seems a reminder to me of the time when Sheriff Lewis wanted to make this a sanctuary city. We're kind of pushing forward things that don't even need to necessarily be addressed. And contrary, I mean, I heard the gentleman's mention about protecting himself as a volunteer. I was at a baseball game at the park on Naylor Mill. There was a kid who was bullying another kid. The parent spoke to the kid and said, "Please leave my kid alone, please leave my kid alone." The kid wouldn't. So the mother went to the parent and said, "Hey, by the by, just letting you know your kid, can you please speak to him?" And the parent basically went off on her and was like, "Forget you," kind of thing. Well, when that game was over, the father and the mother who yelled at her followed her to her vehicle. Here's my point. Now, you may say, well, gee, maybe it would be nice if she was carrying something so she can protect herself. On the other side is, gee, what if those cuckoo crazy people had a gun themselves? And how things can turn around just so greatly. It's also known that when you have more guns, the rates of incidents, whether it's injury, self-injury, or violence, goes up 15%. So that's facts. The last thing that I wanted to say was in the spirit of Parks and Recs Month, yay for this month, the people of San Domingo that I recently spoke to again, and I had brought this forth before, are still asking for lights on the basketball court in San Domingo. It's been about 3 years. So while we're talking about things that may not be so insignificant, we're talking about boots on the ground, effective things that are affecting kids to be able to play on the courts later in the evening after it gets dark, as opposed to just wandering around, because you know there's not really much to do in San Domingo. So if we're going to be talking about celebrating our parks and recs, let's talk about some things that are actually going to be effective and beneficial to our kids, beneficial to the community, and something as simple, and I presented this before, you can put a solar light out there. There's companies that will give them to us for free. I met them at Mako like a couple of years ago. So there are options. So I think we need to put our priorities in perspective on what are we really looking at. Because I went by the whole list. I looked at the whole list of legislation that was put in forth last year and what you all have done this year. I'm just saying, let's do some things that are actually affecting people's lives directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll get back to regular discussion. If we could, Mr. Benson?
Mr. President, just by way of clarification, I became aware this afternoon that this was on the agenda, at least the wear and carry part. And in trying to clarify that the way the state defines it is wear and carry permit as opposed to general carry permit. But in looking at it, I took the opportunity to just kind of look at took a brief amount of time to try to look at what was permitted and not permitted under state law. There is a prohibition in Maryland of guns, general prohibition in Maryland of guns in state parks. That's under COMAR. But if you look at the definition of state parks within COMAR, it's defined as parks within the state system. So I don't think it applies to county parks. Secondly, there was a change in the Maryland law in October of 2023 to add some additional prohibitions, but none of those seem to apply to parks specifically. There is, however, a state law that has been in effect under 4209 of the criminal law article, which basically says that state law normally is superior to county law, but it says that the county can prohibit weapons carried by permit holders in certain instances. So if the county wanted to prohibit the work and carry permit holders, I think the state law allows them to do it, but I don't think state law as written prohibits or mandates that the county prohibit wear and carry permit holders from having the right to have it in county parks.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. Any other council comments? Yes. Joe?
Me? I have a question for Steve. The first gentleman that spoke, does your park police, are they armed?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
They're not.
Okay, thank you.
Josh?
Yeah, I've got a series of questions, but you guys can go first.
Mine's about buses. Under Y, where traffic, it says commercial vehicles, buses, trucks, commercial vehicles. What about school buses? Number 5 in Y, buses, trucks, and commercial vehicles with commercial marking or tools of the trade shall not be operated. School buses would not be included in that, right? Because don't school buses go to parks for different projects and stuff?
Yeah, we will host school functions at times, so that could be.
So they would be exempt from this or not included in this?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
Shane?
Steve, where do we stand with the lights out at San Domingo?
So honestly, as far as the basketball court, I've not heard that. I've talked with some of the folks at San Domingo who have talked about putting lights around the pavilion area. And we've looked into some solar lighting because the problem is there's just not a power source close by. So we have looked at some of the solar lighting. I would have to do further research as far as lighting an actual court via solar lighting. So we've not looked at that, but that's certainly something we can take a look at.
So you will take a look at it?
Yeah, I'd be happy to look at it. I don't know, again, we've never lit a court or a field with solar lighting. To light around a pavilion area is a little different situation, so we'd have to do more research on that, but be happy to look at it.
So I've had a lot of people reaching out to me and calling me regarding the gun issue over the last 48 hours exactly. So questions, I guess, a couple ones that folks wanted to bring up. A couple people wanted me to note that it obviously didn't feel very relaxing, which I think a couple people have said. If you have, firearms in places where families are supposed to be, that they usually, tend not to mix very well. And that is, quote, the antithesis of firearms, antithesis of safety. Firearms don't make people feel comfortable, is what folks wanted me to say. Pass on. And then the questions that they've said or that I've put together here, a couple of them. This for clarity, this was not recommended as the changes from the Parks Commission, or pardon me, the original folks who were actually reviewing current rules. This was not included, as far as the firearms part, that was not included as part of the recommendation, right?
Not originally, but after the first work session, when that issue was brought forward, and my understanding was the council had asked us to look at that, we did bring that back to the commission, and the commission was okay with that as far as an addition. So that was not their original recommendation, but it was vetted after the last council meeting.
And the other ones, would this change affect sports, event sports on the Civic Center or any parking lot or parking area inside the Civic Center?
That's not intended to.
The other ones, the question on my end was just, do we know as far as the impact on things like the USSA National Championship or any of the major tournaments if we make a change in policy? I mean, they do happen on our state parks, right? So if we make this change, does that affect the contracts that we have?
No, I don't think it would affect the contracts, and I've not heard a specific concern from organizers.
We presented that to them, or do they know that that's even being?
No, not directly. No, we've not highlighted that. But I don't think it would impact the contracts as far as facility usage goes.
The other ones, yeah, so I guess the other question is, if someone is noticed carrying a firearm, who should the park, should a park attendees call the sheriff's office? Or under this policy change, who do we actually call to, how do you know that someone, let's say they go grab a ball, comes rolling by, and it's Uncle Tommy, and he goes and he picks up the ball, and then somebody notices Uncle Tommy, who looks a wee bit disheveled, that maybe he has a firearm with him. How do we know whether that gentleman is or is not someone who's a threat? Will that cause people to then be concerned or panic?
I would defer on a legal side. I don't know the answer to that. From a park side, I would say that's a law enforcement issue. Our people are not equipped to make that approach or to be able to discern. So that would be, to me, a law enforcement, but I would defer to Mr. Wilbur on the legal side of that. I don't know the answer to that.
To me, the contact should be to the sheriff's department.
And then, I guess, how many incidents have we had with someone bringing a gun to a Wicomico County Park?
I'm only aware of one, an incident that happened at Pemberton years ago. So I'm not aware of many. I know it's probably 5 years ago, but I'm not aware of that being a consistent issue.
And then lastly, I guess these, somebody asked me, the question of how long it's been since we've had to call the sheriff's office to quell feuding parents fighting after a recreation event, which I already know that answer. It was last week.
Right. Yeah, when was the last tournament? So that happens occasionally. It happens with adult sports too, occasionally, unfortunately. But
yeah, so I guess some obvious questions there you need to think through as we put this through. I think this is the first step in the process, but I guess trying to be more thoughtful. If someone does notice obviously we wouldn't want folks to panic if they see a firearm that someone's carrying, even if it's supposed to be conceal and carry or something like that. And then also just making sure everyone feels safe in general. This is not something that has been known to conjure feelings of safety among a good amount of our population. So I guess the last thing I'll say is, as a whole, if we haven't had these kinds of issues, it does seem a bit like a solution in search of a problem. Might be better for us to hold off. The political ambiguity, I have had multiple people reach out in the last 2 hours who have sent me the information for Senate Bill 1 of 2003, which the amended version, I don't quite see exactly what they're saying, but I'll take another look at it and I'll share it with come back with Mr. Benchin and others. But it does try to be more clear as to saying that local government is included as a part of this. I know the bill was heavily amended, but it does say basically local government property. Now it says a building. The question of whether a building, on a facility, does that the same as does a dugout? I mean, you can't have it inside the dugout, but you can on the field itself. I don't know, but I think that's something for us to continue to investigate. Thank you.
One more thing to add on the concealed carry. I myself have carried a firearm for 20-plus years. I know we're focused on parks right now, but you got to keep in mind there's people walking around our community every day that has been vetted, trained, and is carrying concealed firearm that aren't hurting anybody. And the big thing to keep in mind, there's not always a police officer at a park. There's not always a police officer at the mall. If you have an active shooter situation and a law-abiding citizen is there who's had the training, has been vetted and can eliminate that threat and not hurt one of your family members, that's a good thing. Now, it is a huge responsibility carrying a firearm, huge. But if you're trained properly, vetted properly, it's a good thing because they could save your child's life, your sister's, your brother's, family member's life in an instant. I mean, there's times it takes police officers 5, 10, 15 minutes to get to a call. By then, many, many people have been shot, hurt, killed. Just keep that in mind. We're talking about parks, but in Wicomico County, there's people walking around every day legally carrying a firearm that you don't even know.
I just looked it up. Apparently, there's only about 8 to 9% of the citizens in the country that have a concealed carry. So it's not like everybody you see, is walking around with guns. I agree with Shane. We live in a rural area. Over the years, when I ran the store in Parsonsburg, we had 2 or 3 incidents when the store was open. And as many police officers as we have, it could be 10 or 15 minutes before somebody showed up. Fortunately, we never had to go to the level of having to use firearms, but I sure felt a lot safer because I had one in that store. And when you go to get a carry permit, there's a lot of responsibility, and I think the people that have a carry permit, I don't have one, but I think the people that have one, they've been educated and they know that if they step outside the law by brandishing that to somebody or making an idle threat, hey, I've got a gun, their chances of losing that privilege are going to be taken away. So people can get pretty heated at some of these events. I understand that, but I think some of the people that might get heated if they did have a carry permit, might step back and say, "Well, wait a minute, I'm not gonna say too much here. I don't want to get jammed up." So I support this. I have a cousin that lives out in Montana that he says about 90% of people out there carry guns. He said, and guess what? He says we have a real low crime rate out here. So anyway.
They also have the highest suicide rate in the country.
Well, they got something to do it with, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jonas? Yeah, I'd only say that I've never been a gun person, just by nature, just haven't been exposed to it, really. My parents didn't, my father didn't hunt, and I think a lot of times that's how you might usually get exposed to it, is what your family does, what their habits might be. But I did get a concealed carry about a year ago. Went to Atlantic Tactical here in Salisbury because I felt it was necessary. I also feel, honestly, I haven't taken any vacations, maybe out into the wilderness, like maybe to other parks around the country. But I've always heard about these tragedies that occur just out of nowhere, whether you're walking the Appalachian Trail or wherever it might be, where a violence occurs, and as Shane suggested, changed an individual or a family's life forever. And I just felt, I would be very disappointed in myself if we were on vacation anywhere and something happened and I would feel as if I maybe let my family down if I was not there to fully protect them under any type of circumstances. So I do have it, and I feel it is somewhat of a security in case I feel it may be necessary. And again, I would not want to be shorthanded if the occasion were to occur, unfortunately. So, anyone want to start with the amendments here?
Yeah, I can make the motion if you want. I'd like to make a motion for Legislative Bill 2024-03 as follows. To add the definition of wear and carry permit to, you want me to read the whole thing?
I guess just state the section, the definition section.
Section 179 dash definition 1, to add the definition of wear and carry permit.
And then,
you want me to read the whole thing, or?
whatever's been written in the blue ink and the red.
Okay.
Change.
A valid permit, okay, so a wear and carry permit is a valid permit issued pursuant to Title 5, Subtitle 3 of the Public Safety Article of the Maryland Annotated Code.
That's the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion second. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of the amendment as read, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Amendment passes unanimously.
I'd like to make a motion to amend Legislative Bill 6, 2024-03, Section 179-3 regulations. Let's see, the county harbor facilities, maybe. Okay, I'm going to read the red part. It's to add or to the general public for the sole purpose of accessing public waterways through county-owned boat ramps.
Motion, there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously.
I'd like to make a motion to amend Legislative Bill 2024-3 for firearms, except as set forth in subsection R, comma, no person shall, and then it says in 1, or a law enforcement officer or a person with a wear and carry permit or discharge, number 2, or discharge a firearm on park property except as permitted by state law.
Is there a second? Second. Motion second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion is carried. Amendment passes 5 to 1. 5 to 1, yes, thanks.
I'd like to make a motion to amend Legislative Bill 2024-03 to insert the use of cannabis is not allowed in public parks, or use of cannabis in public parks is prohibited.
The motion, is there a second? Second. Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Amendment passes unanimously. Two more.
Two more.
Two more.
Two more.
Sorry about that. I'd like to make a motion to amend Legislative Bill 2024-03 for traffic, motorized vehicles. We're going to, take out person and then add motorized vehicles, shall take out operate any motorized vehicles and add only be operated on. And then we're going to take out property other than on a road and add properties in areas provided for such usage, including roads and parking lots, and then we're going to take out street to which public access has not been prohibited, and then add driveways.
I think one clarification, properties in areas approved for such usage.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Thank you. That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Amendment passes unanimously.
And then one more motion to amend Legislative Bill 2024-03. Under letter A, we're going to take out the word executive.
That's the motion. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Amendment passes unanimously.
Mr. President,
Did you want to add the school bus
Yes.
to the Y?
I think it would be a good idea to go back to the firearms section and have him read the sections that are being stricken, just so that it's clear for the record.
Oh,
That's
okay,
also
so we're,
being-
yeah, I can read that. It's under letter L for firearms. We're striking out, no person other than law enforcement officer shall, and then discharge, or discharge. You want me to read the whole thing, Laura? Would that make sense?
That would, but I think you have to do it in the form of a motion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to amend legislative bill 2024-03 as follows. Under firearms, we have no person.
Except as set forth.
Yeah, okay, I'll read the whole thing.
Yeah, just read the whole thing again.
Except as set forth in subsection R, no person shall, and then we're taking out no person other than law enforcement officer shall, and then it has, we're keeping carry or possess, and then we're taking out or discharge, and we're keeping a firearm on park property except, and then we're removing in those areas designated for such purposes. And then at the end, we're adding a law enforcement officer or a person with a wear and carry permit, or number 2, discharge a firearm on park property except as permitted by state law.
Second? Motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed. Motion's carried. Amendment passes 5-1. Thank you, James.
Yep.
Do you have any questions, Mr. Benson?
Just to follow up on Commissioner Merritt's question with regard to buses, do you need to go back to the traffic section and deal with school buses? Because as it's currently written, it says buses shall not be operated on park property unless a permit has been first obtained from the department. I guess, Mr. Miller, do school buses normally get a permit before they go to the?
No, I think you could add school buses in the exception. It says with the exception of taxi cabs and tool trucks, you could insert school buses in that list as an exception.
Would you like to make the motion, Mr. Merritt?
I'd like to make a motion that we add school buses to the exempted list of taxi cabs and tool trucks on service calls.
And that is in reference to the section in regard to traffic.
Yes.
That's a motion. Second?
Second.
Motion. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Amendment passes. Thank you, Mr. Benson. Thank you, Councilman Merritt. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor of legislative bill 2024-03 as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Legislative bill 2024-03 passes. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Benson. Thank you, Mr. Wilbur. Mrs. Hurley?
Okay, next on the agenda this evening is Resolution Number 78-2024. This is authorizing the county executive to execute a work order agreement with Everside Health, LLC, to provide comprehensive primary care medical services to employees and dependents of employees via on-site and/or near-site health centers. And we have our Director of Human Resources here, Donna O'Hare, and our Director of Finance, Pam Olin, if there are any questions.
And a motion from council to approve Resolution 78, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? I know we have had a work session on this. Ms. Olin or Sarah, did you have anything you wanted to add? Claire, help discuss or clarify?
I just have one thing. Pam Oland, Finance Director. The agreement that you have in front of you has a start date of July 1st. I wrote in the memo that it will be amended to be August 1st, since obviously we're after July 1st. We are hopeful that we will be able to start, that our employees will be able to start this, if not in August, in September, utilizing the facility.
So would that require an amendment to change the date to August 1st?
We can certainly do that, just.
It's not in the resolution, it's just in the attachment.
But I think it's an exhibit, right, to the.
It is an exhibit to the attachment.
Someone going to give me a motion? To amend the attachment to state August 1st? Shane? Why don't you go ahead and say it?
What exactly do you want me to say?
I know.
I make a motion to.
Amend the attachment to have for the start date to be August 1st, is that correct?
Yes.
Please, yeah, great.
To make the start date effective August 1st,
Correct.
Okay.
2024.
Second.
There's a motion, second, any discussion? Any discussion?
No.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion's carried, amendment passes. Thank you for that, Pam. Anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Okay. Any other further discussion?
I'm injured, so at the point, but thank you.
You okay?
Yeah, she,
I hurt my back,
so she's going to stay there unless council has specific questions.
crawl home and
All right.
it wasn't workers' comp related, so.
Well, in a couple of months, you can come to this place.
Yeah.
All those in favor of Resolution 78, 2024, as amended by Councilman Baker, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes as amended.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next for your consideration is Resolution Number 81-2024. This is amending the fiscal year 2025 budget to move $50,000 from the contingency account to a new account labeled Contingency Airport for Wicomico County's pledge to support a small community air service development grant and to authorize the county executive to accept the grant award. We have Mr. Tony Rudy here, our Director of Aviation, Pam Olin, Director of Finance, Mr. Mike Dunn, President and CEO of the Greater Salisbury Committee.
I entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 81, 2024.
So move.
Second? Second. Motion second. Discussion now. Good evening. Glad to have you all here. If you could name and...
Yep, Pam Olin, Finance Director.
Tony Rudy, Airport Director. And I'm Mike Dunn, President and CEO of the Greater Salisbury Committee.
Great. Pam?
So this is coming before you. We have a tight timeline to apply for the grant. And the grant, we have a better chance of being awarded the grant if there is some local community support behind it. So this would be our pledge. The reason the resolution is written the way it is that if we don't get awarded the grant, the money stays in the general fund and council would have the ability to reallocate it. If we get awarded the grant and then it already gives us the ability to do the second step, which is move it into the account where we would actually expend it out of, which is the county kind of capital grant fund.
Mr. Rudy or Mr. Dunn, whoever would like to maybe expand on this a little bit, expand on it to give us an idea for the public to understand exactly what this means.
Sure, I'll try to be brief, but I just want to give you a very, very brief background of what we've been doing up until this point. We've been meeting with airlines, discussing the data that we've gathered through our consultant, where people are traveling, where we're losing travelers to other airports. Mainly, our major losses are BWI. We do lose some to Philly and some other surrounding Washington airports. And we're trying to capture back, just to give you an idea of how many passengers we lose about 85% of our travel to other airports. We're trying to capture some of that back. So we've been looking at what our top markets are, what an airline, or what would support an airline coming in here, and Florida markets are very strong, the Orlando area, and then South Florida. So we have one carrier in particular that is very interested, but this is very competitive across the country. We have hundreds of airports competing for the same service, and the airlines are finally recovering after COVID now. They're starting to grow again, and one airline in particular is very interested in service. But because this is very competitive, communities offer incentives for them to get up and running because their startup costs tend to be high before they get enough passengers on to make a profit. So one thing we're doing, which was a few months ago, we have a new air carrier route incentive program where we will waive landing fees for up to 2 years. And again, these are fees that we're not collecting right now, so really it's no cost to the airport. We're also waiving any rents they might have for a terminal space for the same period of time. And then the other thing is we're helping support marketing and advertising efforts to get the service up and going. One thing important to notice, though, that we will still be collecting passenger facility charges. So if this service takes off, even if they're at a break-even level, we assume we're going to be collecting around $50,000 a year for capital projects. So in reality, it's kind of a wash. The last piece of the puzzle here is offering a revenue guarantee. So basically, if an airline agrees to service here, we would sit down with them, find out what exactly their expenses are for the flights that they would count, what they count as revenues, and we come to an agreement, and then on a monthly basis, we look at where they are. If they're making a profit, a dime doesn't go out the door. If they're losing, then we have to help make up that. But we set kind of a cap on it so it spreads off. We're not handing them, a blank check at the beginning. We're monitoring this month by month as the service goes on. And again, as I said, this is fairly common nationwide. We feel we have a really strong chance of getting the grant. We did apply for the grant several years ago, but we haven't gotten the grant in the last 10 years, which is very good. It improves our chances of getting it. But the DOT does look at local community support. So we're asking the DOT for an $800,000 grant, $200,000 local share. And I'm happy to report that we have about $60,000 right now in individual and business pledges. Worcester County, we met with them this morning. They agreed to match Wicomico County's contribution up to $50,000. And I'm also meeting with Ocean City Council next Tuesday. And I'm meeting with some commercial partners with Wallops. Trying to remember when that is, next week as well. So we're getting a lot of support here, and I think we're well on our way of having good chances to be awarded the grant.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for allowing us to be here. I want to make sure I say that for the record, Bill Chambers, the president and CEO of the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce, would also have been here tonight, but he's on vacation. But he said that I can certainly represent comments that I'm going to make on behalf of GSC are representative and supported by the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce. So as Tony said, GSC and the Chamber, we sent out invitations to two separate events that were held last week at the Civic Center here in Salisbury. Side note, if I may, while talking with Mr. Holloway that night, and he may or may not be in support of this. We'll find that out in a minute. But I was talking with Mr. Holloway, and he shared with me that when Wicomico County was first formed in 1867, a great or so uncle of his was a member of the first Wicomico County Council. And while it might seem that Mr. Holloway has been here since 1867, it was his uncle. Great. I thought that was really cool.
That and $2 will get you a cup of
coffee. No, it was just a fun
anyway.
little note.
You
So
know,
we held that meeting.
that doesn't need to be talked about.
I
We're here
know,
doing
but I thought it was a
business.
cool
Okay.
story. That's all, and you've served well, and your family has served well. So we met Tuesday at the Civic Center. We had a similar meeting 2 days later in Ocean City, and both were well attended, probably 25 or so businesses. 3 members of this council were here at the meeting in Salisbury at the Civic Center. And when we come before you and support something like this is all about economic development. We've got an airport. This is a regional economic development opportunity. Tony does, as you all know, a fantastic job at the airport. Our friends at Piedmont are so very important to us. We've had conversations with the management at Piedmont. And while I wouldn't say they're fully in support of this, they're also, though, not against it. Piedmont, as you know, has some priorities that are being addressed by the county, and as long as those priorities are taken care of, and of course they have the new airline maintenance facility coming that Dave Ryan is working on. So Piedmont understands that there's room at the airport for an additional carrier. We believe that the regional excitement Worcester County, Wicomico County, and then if you think about what's happened to our north and the growth to our north in Sussex County, Delaware, we think that there's a tremendous opportunity for a lot of those future customers who may or may not even know that we have a commercial airline here in Salisbury and Wicomico because they're new to the area. We think that this opens up tremendous opportunities there in light of what Tony has shared with some companies that he's talking with, Bill and the Chamber and us at GSC. We're also having some continuing conversations. It was great news today what the Worcester Commissioners did, and this is simply an ask of Wicomico County to kind of match what our friends in Worcester have done and to take advantage of this opportunity. And the chance for each of you to be able to say to your constituents that you represent that there may be an opportunity to get on a plane in Salisbury, fly to a Florida destination, which is likely Orlando, for $69, $79 one way. I think a lot of families in the area would really look forward to that opportunity. So with that, thank you for the chance to share, and we'll certainly take any questions.
Thanks, James.
Guaranteeing that price?
James.
I believe that price was represented at the meetings that we had last week.
James.
I'm understand that we had 12 years ago we had this same thing. I'm just curious on what happened with that, and then and whatever that reason is, would we possibly end up with the same problem?
Sure. So, no, that's a great question, and a lot of people have been asking that question. So that was Allegiant Airline back then. I'm not going to name the airport tonight because we don't, or the airline tonight because we don't have, any agreements in place, but we're talking to several low-cost carriers. But Allegiant Air back then was a whole different airline. They had a different business model. They were flying older aircraft, which, were certainly safe, but not as reliable as newer aircraft. The service was actually doing quite well, but from my understanding, a couple things happened. They went to a larger aircraft where they were initially flying about 80% full. They went to a larger aircraft while kind of maintaining the same level of passengers or even dropping off slightly. So then they were only flying 60% full, which they weren't profitable. And I understand they also changed either the days or the times that they were flying, which really weren't a good match, I guess in general, but for the community as well. So there were several things there. The airlines now, the new low-cost carriers, or even those that have been in service for a while, they're all running new fleets. They're getting brand-new aircraft out of the factory, much more reliable to the point where they're 99.9% completion factor. They're a lot more efficient on fuel, so that price has come down in their business model. And they're being very particular with the routes that they're picking now. So that's why we feel they have a lot better chance than that service did back in 2012.
Jeff?
I had 4, but you already answered 1, so I'm down to 3. How many jobs do we think this is going to create if we do this?
At this point, we're not sure as far as direct airline jobs. We're not sure what their operation is going to be like, whether they're going to bring people in to ground handle these, because we're talking 2 to 3 flights a week. They may just contract with Piedmont to provide that service because those people are already here, and they have they have time on their hands, or they could work a couple extra hours a day to work those flights. So as far as direct jobs, I would say minimal, single digits, if that would add to what they're doing.
Somebody's going to have to sell the tickets, right?
Yeah, and that's a good point to the last question is these airlines now are, you could find their flights anywhere on Expedia or any of your typical search engines you use for flights, where in the past they kind of had their own proprietary things, so it wasn't as widely available. So a lot of that's done online. A lot of it's more automated now. If you fly anymore, if you have your phone and you check in on that. I can't remember the last time I actually walked up to a ticket counter.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunately, it's not supporting jobs in that sense.
What about after the 2 years? What's the chances of us having to provide additional funding to?
Yeah, so this
Planes
is for,
in the
this
air
is for a
again.
limited time. After 2 years, there's no more. And, in reality, the airline's going to know well before that if they're going to be successful or not. So, and the incentives we're offering, we look at this at a 12-month period and then another 12-month period. So it's not like it's a full year, 2 years to begin with.
Lastly, the big one. Where are we at with the runway extension?
So, good question. We've been waiting a long time to acquire a piece of land from DNR at the end of the airport that's required so we can control the land so nothing is, built there in the future. It protects our, what's called the runway protection zone. It's been tied up in the state for quite a while now. It is on the agenda for the Board of Public Works on July 17th, which myself and Bunky are planning on going up to attend that meeting. And hopefully everything the state needs will be pretty much finalized by that point. Once that's said and done, then DNR will sign off on the environmental permitting we've been waiting on. That's what's been holding up the whole project. So the contractor's ready to go. We're ready to put shovels in the ground. I'm ready to do a groundbreaking ceremony as soon as the state says we're good to go.
It's like watching paint dry.
Yeah.
Because right now, we can land full planes, but we can't take off full planes. Is that right? Because
Well,
of the length of the runway?
Partially true. So the aircraft that Piedmont is flying to Charlotte right now, it's an older design. It needs a lot of runway to be able to carry a full load of passengers, full load of fuel, baggage to get to Charlotte. And especially when there's weather, thunderstorms in the summertime, hotter weather, the air is less dense. They need a little more performance margin so that, if they have to divert around storms or circle for a while, they've got the fuel on board. So the only thing they can leave off then is passengers and luggage. So, but other aircraft that operate, such as ones we're looking at, this new carrier, would have no problem operating with full loads because they're so much more efficient.
Question, Joe?
Thank you.
I was here 12 years ago when we had the Allegiant there, and all I heard was it wasn't the participation. I didn't hear anything about old airplanes or planes breaking down. The prior airport manager said there wasn't enough participation. In fact, I had a relative who wasn't here in 1867, by the way, that was said they didn't understand how they could even fly the planes with no more people on them. So that was the issue.
Well, I've looked at their numbers recently, and they were, when they started the service, I don't know the exact period, but I know at least for probably 5 or 6 months, they were running 80% loads, and that's about the time that they went to the larger aircraft, and they still kind of maintained.
I saw your chart.
Okay.
Thank you. What's the value, now we've already give away $225,000 or agreed to in marketing fees. So that's coming from the airport. By the way, let me step back. At one time, the airport was an enterprise fund, and now we're transferring that into sort of an enterprise and...
It's going to be like the Civic Center
Like
in the
Civic
fact
Center.
that it can afford to cover its operating costs. It cannot afford to cover its capital costs.
Okay.
And so that is the reason for...
Yeah.
And there are very few airports that can afford to cover their own capital.
Like civic centers, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So I say, and you can say I repeat myself, but that's the...
Yeah, but anyway, so we've already done the $225,000. What's the value of the waive fees, the landing, the terminal, and the apron parking? What's the value of those?
So the landing fees cover our costs for our firefighting on the airport because the airlines are required, or the airport's required to have that with commercial service. So that's a flat cost. Right now, that's being picked up by Piedmont Airlines. So we waive those to begin with, but then eventually, after 2 years, we start collecting those, so it lowers that fee for everyone.
I'm looking for a number. What's the value of those?
It's
per week,
around,
say per week or per month?
It's around $400,000 a year for the cost.
So it's another $500,000. So we're up to $625,000.
But those costs we're already incurring today.
Pardon me?
Those costs we're already incurring today.
Yeah, but we're not going to be getting them either. We're not going to get the payment for them.
Well, they're being paid for today, so.
Yeah,
they're being
so,
covered.
anyway, so we're already up to $600 and some $1,000. You answered the question about, I've got several questions here. Has Salisbury pledged anything?
No, not.
Have you asked or going to?
Not yet. I was talking with the county executive today about approaching them at tonight's.
Okay, because their name's on the building too. Okay. How about the Chamber of Commerce or the Greater Salisbury Committee? Have they kicked in any money?
We will be pledging, yes.
And so he says he's at 60,000 now. Where are we headed?
We're headed toward probably 70,000 with those two
With those two?
contributions.
Okay, all right. Now, isn't the agreement with the airline for 5 years? The other night when we had this meeting, wasn't this contract with this airline for 5 years?
This incentive program will be for 2 years. That's my understanding.
Pardon me?
It's my understanding the incentive program will be for 2
The
years.
incentive, but isn't the agreement with the airlines for 5 years?
Well, we haven't signed an agreement yet, so.
But it was under my understanding at that meeting, that was going to be for 5 years, if it was.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, all right. Another thing, as some of our council members often say, things get sprung on us. We just heard about this last week, and here it is on our table already, without any, no chance to digest it. It's just coming in anyway.
This has come up quick, and DOT just recently
Yeah,
announced the.
yeah, but it just got to our table. So anyway, I'm not going to support this, but I want to explain why, because I do get criticized sometimes for voting no. We've done a lot of head scratching, nail biting, agonizing decisions when we were doing our budget process. We weren't able to fund our detention center employees as much as we wanted to. We didn't give our raises to our employees in the county as much as we wanted to. We weren't able to fully fund the education as much as a lot of people wanted us to. And I see the city fire chief sitting back there waiting for more money. And we've not done that yet. Citizens are going to be paying more in property taxes because of assessments, and if they haven't done already, just wait until they get their assessments done. They're paying more for groceries, gas, everyday living. Inflation has been a huge impact on our citizens. State government has raised over 300 fees. You're getting ready to pay twice as much for tags and registration fees as you have before. Professional licenses, your dog groomer, your beautician's going to be paying more. We've met with our delegation and our MACO representatives, and they've all warned us of pending financial issues with the state and pass downs. Citizens will soon be paying more for trash disposal. We just went through that debacle here a couple of weeks ago. Our library is going to be looking for more money. And probably in 2 years, this airline, if they show up, they're going to have their hand out wanting more money too. So we've already, forgiven enough fees. I think this is a great example of corporate welfare. If this airline can't come to Salisbury and make it on their own, I'm not going to help support it. So that's where I stand.
Just a brief comment I did want to share. I had a couple years ago in the height of COVID, or as COVID was being announced, my wife and I had two of our close friends lived in San Francisco. They basically found out the governor or the mayor was shutting things down. The governor was going to shut things down. They didn't even go back to their apartment. They literally got on an airplane and landed in Kentucky because that just happened to be where my friend's sister lived. They still live in Kentucky, and they brought their salaries with them, which were San Francisco salaries. They were made it very clear, and then all the companies that they work for, basically, if you have an airport nearby and you can hop on a plane and do your job, then that actually brings in folks who can bring their salaries with them. If you look at the income that Wicomico County's had with regard to our income tax revenue compared to our property tax, it's actually topped it. But that's because we were the fourth largest importer when it comes to jobs of folks who wanted to live in our area because they could be next to the bay and the beach and centrally located. So I think the more, to Vice President Merritt's question, about jobs, there's also those indirect jobs of folks who can actually come and do their work if we provide the ability for them to, to do their work, which occasionally means jumping on an airplane and getting out of here. So, and then coming right back. So hopefully we continue to do more of that. And I do appreciate you looking at that and helping make that happen.
Josh, this is for people to go on vacation with. This is for flights to Florida. This is for vacation. If we want to give $50,000, maybe we should just give it to citizens of this county to go to Ocean City with. It'll probably help the economy more here.
Another way to look at it, it's a quality of life issue too. So the more options we have to offer, the more people want to live here.
I don't know if the quality of life in Florida is better than here or not, but anyway.
It means quality of life in Wicomico County. James?
When do you need an answer? You need an answer tonight? You need one right now?
We need pledges in place pretty much by the end of next week.
The federal government basically announced this late in June, and the deadline for replying is prior to, we need to have the pledges in place basically prior to our next council meeting.
If I may, Mr. Wynn, and I appreciate what Mr. Holloway just said, but I actually applaud the council. I realize that this is a last minute. I get that. And things come along when they come along, and this is an opportunity. And to be very honest with you, as Tony knows, when we first had this meeting out at the airport maybe 3 weeks or so ago, Bill Chambers and I were like, gosh, this is a great idea. It's a shame that it has to happen so quickly. But when we contacted, again, county executive and the council president, we, from where we sit, and the companies that we represent, we're thrilled and thank the council, whatever decision you make tonight, that you were able to agree to put this on the agenda tonight, that you did act quickly, because sometimes opportunities like this, they come when they come. And in the ideal world, it would have been better if everyone had time to digest and think about that. I completely respect that, Mr. Holloway. But I also want to thank Council President and County Executive and each of you for your willingness to entertain this at such a, kind of a late notice.
I still have it.
Yes, sir.
So if this doesn't work, we get the money back, right? We get our $50,000.
So if we do not get, again, the way it is written is such that if we are not awarded the grant, the money is still in the general fund. It is in the account that's listed, but it's now a general fund account. So council, if we come back to you and say, okay, the grant was not awarded to us, we would like to reallocate this to X, Y, and Z. We still have that ability. If we are awarded the grant, then what we would do, as I stated, this allows the executive to sign the grant, and it also allows us to move the money into the fund that would allow us to make payments out of it.
Right. I have two more questions, if that's okay.
And if I may, on the private side, the same rule applies. No one is writing a check today. Okay. The only thing people are doing is making a pledge.
Just pledges. This is only a pledge. Okay.
Yes,
my next question is this money, is that coming from?
It's coming from contingency.
Last year's contingency? Okay.
No, so in the fiscal 2025 budget, there was $500,000 placed in Department 46 for contingency items. And so we are asking for $50,000 of that 500, so it's not coming from fund balance. It is something that is already in the fiscal 25 budget.
Okay. I had another question, Shane, but I forgot what it was.
Question, Shane?
No, I did.
No, you forgot?
Yeah, I did. I got caught up in what he was saying.
I'll give you some time.
Wow.
I'll give you some time if you want. I'd like to say that I really do appreciate you being here, and Michael, with your cooperation through Greater Salisbury Committee, and Bill Chambers as well through the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, this is the prime example of public-private partnerships, which we don't have the opportunity that often in Wicomico County to have dropped on our doorstep. But I think it is, and I think it's a small amount. I also would like to publicly thank Worcester County for their commitment to Wicomico County. which I think is fantastic, and I think we certainly would, as the representatives for Wicomico County, want to hold up our end of the bargain. Worcester County thinks it's worthwhile for this region. I think we should do the same and move forward with it. James?
Yeah, I was going to ask about, are you visiting Somerset County at all?
Well, our big partner down there, well, actually, no, it's down in Virginia. That's not, we do have, I did reach out to them.
Nassau Wallops has been at the table. A company called Hardwire, which is in Wicomico. I'm not sure if they're on the Somerset or the Worcester side, but as we know, James, Somerset, times are challenging in Somerset, and so we're concentrating in the areas where we think we can be successful.
But I'm trying to remember, were you included on the email today from Somerset County?
And then,
I believe,
maybe?
I believe so. I know they're sending a letter of support, but as far as financially.
So if we make no pledge tonight, how does that impact the ability or your chances of getting an airline?
It probably doesn't look very good since it's seated in Wicomico County. If we're not willing to, the surrounding our neighboring county and the local businesses are willing to put money forward to this pledge, but the county that actually owns the airport is not willing to pledge towards it. It probably does not look as good as if we do.
It would have been nice if it would have came to us first before we went outside of our county.
Well, but it's also a time frame thing. I mean, their meeting was earlier today, and their next meeting isn't until after we have to have the pledges. So it's a matter of timing. We wanted it on their agenda so that we had the opportunity to hopefully get something from them. They have agreed to pledge. Our meeting happens to be at Tuesday night versus Tuesday day.
And just for, I didn't ask them directly. We made our presentation out in Ocean City, and then Weston Young in Worcester County, he kind of planted the seed with the county commissioners, and I was invited out to the meeting this morning. So
Is that a unanimous support?
one against.
Yeah, okay.
But the grant is not contingent on matching funds. You're just saying it looks.
So the grant is more favorably viewed if we're asking for an $800,000 grant, it is more favorably viewed if we can come up with $200,000. Right. So we have $50,000 pledge. We have about $60,000 from outside. If we do our 50, we are now at $160,000 and possibly $170,000 with Greater Salisbury and Chamber of Commerce. So we would be, again, close to the number and hopefully be able to get the additional $30,000 in pledges from either Ocean City, which we are approaching, Salisbury, and then any other businesses that might be willing to pledge.
Joe? Yeah, Pam, you said it wouldn't look good if we didn't do the 50, but, we're already up to, what's, $600 and some thousand.
But again, like any grant that we apply for, there are rules that make us look better for the grant.
Well, yeah,
This is the rule for this
If we give
grant.
the whole 2 million, or, if we give the whole 200,000, it would look a lot better, but, I was at that meeting last week. I know a lot of people in Wicomico County. I've been here a long time. One gentleman made a comment that, if you want to do something for economic development, you find an airline that brings people to the county, like business people flying from, Pittsburgh or Philadelphia or New York, not flying people out to Florida. If you want to invest money, you do it that way. So, I think we've done enough by what we've done already without stepping up with another $50,000. And it's going back to the amount of people there. I was I was expecting, with the band playing and the drinks flowing, I was expecting to see a room full of high rollers. There was a few people there with money, but there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm, believe me.
If I may speak to that, on that very same night, the chamber had its regional event at Bordelot, and to prove how this was last minute, many of the people, and Mr. Holloway is correct, many of those people who would otherwise have come were previously committed to the chamber event, including Bill Chambers himself, literally couldn't be at both places at the same time. He was hosting his event down at Bordelot, so we're all trying to tag team this as best we can.
Wrap this up. Take a vote. All those in favor of Resolution 81, 2024, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 81, 2024 passes 5-1. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Mrs. Hurley, what about the letters of recommendation? Do we have to make some comment on that to get those out?
I think it'd be a good idea, to at least get a consensus to send it.
Everybody's okay with sending the letter of support?
No.
We're good, besides Joe. Thank you, Ms. Hurley.
Okay, so next on the agenda is the submission of 2 appointments to the Wicomico County Commission for Women. And we have Mr. Bunky Luffman here, Director of Administration.
Thank you for your patience, Mr. Luffman.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And
also Megan Outen, who's
and
the
Ms. Outen,
chair.
yes. Good evening.
Good evening. So, just to, I read a short thing about what you guys do, and certainly you can add whatever you'd like. So the Wicomico Commission on Women is a nonpartisan organization dedicated to enriching the lives of women and families by focusing on issues of importance. And like I said, we have the chair, Megan Outen, here, and we have 2 appointments.
Yes, you do. So just to reintroduce myself, because you all know me as a resident, I'm in these chamber halls with you all pretty often, but I'm the new chair to the Women's Commission. I was appointed last month. I've actually reached out to Mrs. Hurley to schedule a formal sit-down with you all to walk through some of the initiatives we have for the upcoming year, just so you all are familiar with the new executive board and the work that we're looking to do in 2024. So as Mr. Luffman said, we have 2 appointments here before you, 2 phenomenal women who do some very great work here in our community.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Ready?
All you.
So before you is resolution number 76-2024. This is confirming the appointment of Nancy Mitchell to the Wicomico County Commission for Women.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 76, 2024.
Move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution 76, 2024 passes. Congratulations, Mr. Mitchell. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all.
Okay. Next is resolution number 77-2024, confirming the appointment of Caroline O'Hare to the Wicomico County Commission for Women.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 77, 2024.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I don't know if either of you would like to make a brief comment. We'd certainly give you the floor if you choose to do so. Maybe so, maybe not. You'll be all right. Okay. I'll force you.
Of course, we'll go together.
Really appreciate it. It's a very active group. I mean, we've been making a lot of appointments to this commission.
Do we have to state our names?
Yes, you do.
Please.
I am Nancy Mitchell. I'm a Wicomico County resident and have served as a Poet Laureate of Salisbury for a long time. For going probably in my 4th year, and I am very, very honored to be a part of this commission. I think we can do great things. Thank you.
My name is Caroline O'Hare. I'm the Events and Culture Manager for the City of Salisbury. I am honored to have been asked to join this commission, and I look forward to us coming together as women and supporting women and families in our county and doing great things. All of you, just from sitting here this evening, have really had to weigh a lot of decisions. There's a lot going on here, and both Nancy and myself are happy to lend a hand and advise and work together. So thank you so much. We really appreciate this.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're both going to be a great addition. That's wonderful.
Oh,
So,
thank you so
very
much.
for everything do. Thanks. Thank you, Ms. Outen.
Mr. President, that's all I have.
Ms. Chattel?
Good
Good evening, Council President and County Council. My name is Anjali Chattel, the Internal Auditor, and I'm here to present Resolution Number 79, 2024, adopting the annual audit plan for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 79, 2024.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Okay. So each year, the Internal Auditor's Office is required to present an audit plan. This plan is based on several criteria, including audits recommended based on a risk assessment, selected audits recommended by respondents to inquiry, cooperation with the external auditor for mutually beneficial projects, and other observations and qualitative criteria that I've gathered over time. This plan includes 10 audits, specifically billing, cash controls, debts and accounts payable, grants, non-salaried units, overtime, purchase card, and miscellaneous purchases, the roads division audit to also cover DEF this time, special events audit, safari at the quarry, and then a WEX fuel card audit. In addition, there's other tasks that the Internal Audit Office has to do, such as a risk-based plan for the next year, peer review, hotline management, budget review, meetings, and other unanticipated projects, as well as wrapping up fiscal year 2024 audits.
Any questions? Say one thing, very comprehensive.
So I'm trying to make the audit as upfront as possible to the department so they can reach out to me earlier if they have concerns, and then also to avoid scope creep so that they don't actually get bigger. So even though it looks like a longer plan, the theory is that it'll be more efficient. I do have one more ask, and I mentioned this at the last meeting in the open work session, that part of the internal audit role is for me to test things based on criteria that have been given to me. Some of these things I might get from the code, some of them from policies the department may have, but part of this also is at what level do I fail things, and or at what level do I start making recommendations? And so two of the things are called risk appetite and risk tolerance. The appetite talks about the types and amounts of risk that the organization is willing to accept in pursuit of its strategies and objectives. These are often qualitative things like safety is more important than money or cost. Employee morale maybe is more important than something else, the turnaround time, like that. So if you can't give me any statements tonight, but maybe you can draft something, that would be great. If you can create a discussion now on this that can guide at what points do I start failing things or passing things. So that's risk appetite, and then risk tolerance is the acceptance or the acceptable variation in performance to specific objectives. So for instance, if there's one missing signature, is that enough for you that you would want me to say this audit fails, or would it be 10%, 1%? I've been using 20% approximately this past year. I've been looking at what the prior auditor did as the level, the threshold, but this is a new board and things can change over time. So what the prior auditor did maybe isn't what your risk comfort level is.
Yes, Josh.
I'd just like to say, of course, on that note, I've noted before, I highly trust you and what your committee, and I know you're constantly looking at what other local governments and other folks are doing. Just me personally, I think I would look to you to say, hey, here's my recommendation for a particular change, given what we've done in the past and what I think is, or some larger trends for this particular topic within our area or our field or whatever. So I don't have any strong feelings on that part of it, but I do highly value your recommendation when it comes to a lot of these things, and I'd be happy to help think through that with you if that were helpful. But otherwise, I'm going to look to you.
Anyone else? Okay. Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor of Resolution 79, 2024, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes. Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 80, 2024.
To move.
Second. Discussion.
So this is the IT audit now?
Yes.
Okay. So this, and I apologize to the public. I can't actually, here it is. Okay. So pursuant to Resolution 1372023, I conducted an audit of the IT infrastructure for Wicomico County. However, there is Maryland state law related to cybersecurity, specifically the State Finance and Procurement Article, Section 3.5-301B, where you're specifically required to redact from the public cybersecurity observations and findings. So therefore, everything's been redacted. Unfortunately, there's not that much we can discuss at this time, I believe.
Well, we've had a chance to review it.
Correct.
Council had a chance to review it. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor of Resolution 80, 2024, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I just wanted to note, if it's possible, apparently I wasn't very loud on the, or quick enough on the legislative bill 2004-03. I am opposed to that bill. I don't know if this is the, regarding the Chapter 179 regulations of parks and recreational facilities. If it's all helpful, I'd be happy to bring it up to reconsider, but I just want to be clear that that's where I was, even though I wasn't very loud.
I think we can accept that.
That's what I
It doesn't change the vote, obviously, just.
If you could make a note for the record.
I know you oppose the amendment, you're saying you oppose.
Opposed to the bill as a whole, yeah, I just want to be clear on that.
Okay.
Yeah, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
At this time, we have the floor for public comments. For those of you that have been very grateful to stay here as long as you have, if you'd like to come to the podium, please state your name, your county of residence, and your concerns or comments.
Hello, thank you. My name's Joe White. I'm a resident of Wicomico County. The question I want to ask is, if we get to the right answer with the wrong process, is that something to feel good about, or is it something that sometimes, we all maybe need a little bit of luck? One of the ways that I really feel we can stay out of making the right decision with the wrong process is with the utmost transparency. At this time, yesterday, July 1st, we actually moved to a hybrid system with the liquor dispensary. And through the press conferences yesterday and through the media, the whole story is actually not being told. And part of the problem there is we had one state delegate, Carl Anderton, and our current executive taking a lot of credit for hard work that was put in by a lot of folks. I'm not here to discuss my position on that legislation and that change. My concern is with the process. The task force that was assembled met 10 times, to my understanding, and nobody on this side of the room was there. It's not very transparent. Today we had discussion about airport and a grant, and thank you, Councilman Holloway, for stating your opposition to that, because it's very quick. And part of my question is, the Airport Commission meets every month. In fact, their next meeting is July 8th at 3 o'clock at the terminal building in the conference room. That's where you go, I guess, to have a voice in what they're doing. But they don't advertise that. I don't think they're looking for our voice. My concern here is, as we move forward, and obviously a lot of us who want to see this referendum passed in November, and I'm one of those, I want to state that clearly, want more transparency. We have a sanitation district that we're planning. We have a library that we're planning. We have a grant that we're planning on using on the airport. My question is, why can't it be as transparent as the 7 of you are here? Tonight, we had a great discussion about the wear and carry permit for the Parks and Rec. I've been to Parks and Rec meetings. I've watched Director Miller run those meetings, run those questions by the folks on that committee. You can't get more transparent. Even if I disagree with him or his commission or you, that's okay. There's a chance for public comment there, just like there is here. I want to see more people show up to discuss with you. Everybody here, and Ms. Shields, Councilman Shields, has been so open and nice. They need to do that, and that's what I want to see everyone do.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. White.
Mike Goldberg, Wicomico County. Well, as of yesterday, it looks like the county liquor monopoly has been broken. I find it interesting how the Liquor Board Task Force, which supposedly studied the issue, only held closed-door meetings, keeping anyone who didn't agree with them locked out. This lack of transparency is typical of how every county executive has acted since the office was created 18 years ago. The current executive is no different, except for the sheer volume of her dealings that have been obscured from the public eye. Nonetheless, Julie Giordano and State Delegate Carl Anderton took their victory lap at a press conference yesterday. I'm sure that the several large bar and restaurant owners who attended and who contributed generously to her campaign are grateful for her patronage. So now we must deal with the future consequences of the legislation. Over the past several years, the Wicomico County Liquor Dispensary has generated approximately $1 million annually for the county treasury. With the new hybrid system allowing private wholesale distributors to enter the market, these revenues will likely be reduced because the dispensary will probably be selling less volume. So how do we replace the lost revenue? There are only two choices: reduce spending or find some clever means of getting further into the pockets of Wicomico County taxpayers. The smart money is on tax increases. The big bars and restaurants will do just fine under this new system, but what about some of your favorite small pubs and eateries who can't buy their products in bulk to receive volume discounts from the wholesale distributors? They will have to buy more than they need to receive those discounts and then warehouse those products for lengthy periods of time until they can be sold to consumers. Nothing kills a business quicker than negative cash flow, so these small businesses are going to get hammered. By their public comments, it's clear that Executive Giordano and Delegate Anderton want to take it a step further by eliminating the county dispensary and helping their friends and contributors get liquor licenses to open more liquor stores. Delegate Anderton said it himself yesterday at the press conference by saying, "Now that we got the door open, we may as well walk on through." But I suppose we should all be grateful for their efforts to help liquor stores proliferate across the county. This will make Wicomico County a better place by increasing rates of alcohol abuse and dependency, increasing crime in neighborhoods near liquor stores, and reducing property values in those neighborhoods. So thanks, Ms. Giordano and Mr. Anderton. Now we can experience the same plagues suffered by other Maryland counties. I suppose that's what y'all call progress. Thank you.
Ms. Goldberg.
Good evening. Monica Brooks, Wicomico County resident and NAACP president. Thank you for your comments. I too watched that press conference, and I was on the task force as one of the people that was in a minority of certain opinions. But the county executive was not on that committee. Neither was Carl Anderton. They were not involved with that task force. But I would say that one of the things that I pushed hard for was that we do not get rid of the dispensary. And one of the reasons was, one of the comments that he made was the proliferation of just everybody, you get one, everybody gets a liquor license. The other thing is, for those who don't know, the dispensary literally costs no money to the county. Zero. It does not cost a dime to taxpayers. It does not cost a dime to anyone. However, it has given at least $1 million to the county annually. So that was something that I was in support of, and plus all the jobs that it provides in that space. But I was very taken aback by that press conference, because I was thinking, what's going on here? So I just think, and also
regarding transparency, that was something that we had no control over. We were not given the option to do anything. We weren't in charge of that. We were just there. The recommendations that we made were just recommendations, and then the final decisions were made where the final decisions were made. So I agree that there should be transparency in all spaces, and that when people are asked to be a part of task force, like I was asked to be a part of a task force, that we give more information, because quite frankly, we had a lot of conflict involved because there was lots of lack of transparency that was continually brought up multiple times, and it caused more problems than necessary. So I just wanted to just say that in this space, we were not supportive of going all out, everybody gets a liquor license, but also transparency is very necessary. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks.
Back again, Robert Taylor, county resident. I kind of echo what's been said about the dispensary system, but that's not what I came to speak to tonight. I want to call your attention to Section 90-7 of the county code. That is the hotel or multifamily residential development property tax credit, commonly called the Horizon Program, that the council passed 3 years ago. It was in August of 2021, just about 3 years ago. And that established a tax credit for residential and hotel development, primarily in downtown Salisbury in the central business district. You have to improve the value of your property by $10 million. If you do that, you're entitled to a tax credit in the first 5 years of 80% of the increased property value. Generally speaking, that would be the construction of the buildings. For example, the Ross. They tore down the buildings that were there before, so their base value was the land value, and the increased value is the building itself, which is appraised, I think, around $30 million. And then it decreases in the next 5 years, so it's a 10-year program for quite a bit of tax relief, or really it's a subsidy for the developers. Now, that particular bill is subject to, and I'll just read from subpart H of that section, the hotel or family residential development property tax credit shall be reevaluated by the county council and executive every 3 years, and the county council and executive may approve modifications, suspension, or termination of the tax credit program at any time by resolution of the county council. That goes on to say any approved tax credit shall not be affected by modification, suspension, or termination of the program. So possibly, if it were changed, the Ross would remain qualified. Not sure of that, because like any other legislation, the county council can simply rescind the entire section. So it doesn't have to be changed by resolution. The whole program could be eliminated. And I think what we've seen tonight, we want to subsidize an airline, we subsidize the airport, we subsidize a lot of things here in the county, and we need to get more revenue. If it weren't for the disparity grant and the money that's come in from the dispensary system the last 10 years, you'd have about $4 million in the county reserve fund. So we are really in a problem, and we need to start eliminating these tax breaks, and there are going to be a lot more if we're not careful. The same people that developed the Ross now want to develop a hotel here. Well, there's a person developing a hotel in Fruitland. He's not getting any tax breaks. How's that fair? How are these tax breaks under this Horizon program fair to any of us? They're not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Hello again, Joe Venosa. Let me echo the comments regarding both the dispensary and the issues regarding the airport. I have a little bit of background in economics, but I don't understand how subsidizing an airline to send flights to Florida creates economic growth here. And we've done it already 10 years ago, so
Excuse me.
salute.
Bless you.
Anyway, But speaking of the dispensary and its related issues, as I was watching yesterday that press conference with the county executive and Representative Cornbread, it kind of reminded me of in the Soviet Union when a premier or an executive would come out and do an event, they would make all the commissars stand out there by force, and all of the county employees were kind of out there by force. I hadn't really seen it except in Soviet-era footage or in the Sesame Street book, The Monsters Picnic. I'll give this to some councilmen later if they want. But the thing about this issue that it's tied to is the fact that we have a situation among our county employees in which there is widespread abuse, fear, retaliation that is leading to a huge human resources crisis. It's come to our attention that several longstanding veteran county employees, particularly in the roads department, have either retired or have left under this duress and pressure. It's estimated that we've lost nearly 100 years of experience recently because of these tactics, and because the current system with the county executive is such that the grievance process is compromised by her office. This is leading to a real crisis in our infrastructure. We literally have a hollowed out roads and public works workforce, not to mention all of the other departments. So related to that concern, and because there are people that cannot publicly speak out on it, some of us in the community have come up with a possible safety sort of valve for them to address some comments, albeit anonymously, or if they wish to do so in their recent retirees. The email address is countyexecutiveabuses@gmail.com. Let me repeat that. countyexecutiveabuses@gmail.com. If you are a recently retired employee or a current one who is willing to speak out about some of these issues and scandals, now is the time to do so, because the public needs to understand how the executive office, when it's not defunding the county through the liquor system or sort of these other corporate welfare incentives, how they're literally gutting our workforce. And so for those employees that are suffering in silence, there are people that are here to try to help, we understand, and I commend those that have come forward, but I think the public really needs to hear more about what's really happening in our workforce, because there's a reason why we have the largest work shortage in our county's history under this current executive and this administration. So, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Venosa. Any other comments?
My name is Mikkel Darlene. I live in Wicomico County. I'm here to, once again, address the future of Connolly Mill Park. Earlier tonight, we heard a proclamation naming July National Parks and Recreation Month. This is a time dedicated to recognizing the invaluable role that parks play in building vibrant and healthy communities. As we consider and acknowledge this, it is imperative that we reaffirm our commitment to preserving Connolly Mill Regional Park to serve this role for all of Wicomico and beyond. This month also celebrates those professionals who maintain our county's parks. Our very own Steve Miller, Director of Recreation, Parks and Tourism, along with Weston Young, they diligently work to bring these values to life in Wicomico County. When Connolly Mill was generously donated, it was Steve, and I messed up, that's what I meant, Weston Young, who presented a visionary plan for a unique park that would uplift and unite our community. Their vision was embraced and endorsed by the Wicomico Natural Resource Conservation Advisory Committee, as it provided crucial protection to some of our most precious green space and water sources. Today, that vision is more crucial than ever. The Wicomico River is grievously polluted and our water supply is threatened. Connolly Mill Park would protect a portion of the Paleo Channel and 3 creeks that form the watershed of the Wicomico River. It will also serve to protect our citizens' health and well-being. Wicomico County unfortunately ranks at the bottom in state health rankings, largely due to lack of accessible spaces for exercise. This has contributed to alarming rates of preventable health conditions such as heart disease and diabetes. COVID-19 further emphasized the essential role parks play in holding communities together during crises by providing space to come together even when disease drove us apart. We are also facing an unprecedented epidemic of mental illness and depression, and green spaces are a proven remedy. Connolly Mill Park is uniquely situated and highly accessible to those that need it the most. It is our responsibility to ensure that public land serves its highest and best use, and that this use is both fair and equitable to all citizens. Opening Connolly Mill Park fulfills both these objectives. The outpouring of support for saving this park is undeniable. The petition to save Conley Mill Park has garnered over 1,050 signatures, and that count is still rising. This is a testament to the community's unwavering commitment. This park is a promise made by both of our previous county executives and councils. It was made with the input of constituents, environmental groups, and for the greater good of all of Wicomico. It's a promise we must keep. Let's honor National Parks and Recreation Months by reestablishing our dedication to Conley Mill Regional Park. I implore the County Council and County Executive to collaborate with us, constituents, to bring the original vision of Conley Mill Park to fruition. It's time to invest in the health, well-being, and unity of all who call Wicomico County home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is James Stallion, and I'm a resident of Wicomico County. I agree with the words supporting Conley Mill Park that Mikhail just previously spoke about. I'd like to share a few brief comments from supporters of Conley Mill Park. First, public spaces should be used for the benefit of the public, not just the nearby HOA or the tourists who visit our region, but the whole public. Unilateral decisions by county executives, uninformed by the wants and needs of our communities, is the type of big government overreach that the executive promised they would rein in. Second, the people's choice was not considered. The original plans is for all residents, not just quad owners with money. Third, I'm signing this petition based on facts presented as to the original intent for this property. I believe if one follows the money, it will be clear as to why this situation has occurred. Fourth, I do not want to see the land that was planned for public use be now private venture run. I am also concerned about preserving the ecosystem. Fifth, this is the kind of bait and switch that is not needed in Wicomico County. I'm signing because there is no integrity when the people's voices are not heard. Originally, Conley Mill Park was slated to be a park for public use and not a commercial enterprise to be developed, whereby the county would get a kickback of 10% per event with no limitations or boundaries set forth. Once in private hands, this will now become a commercial enterprise, having had no transparency as to how this changed hands or why. I am for preserving the park for public use. Sixth, the county executive is ignoring the intent of the donor and the opinions of the citizens. Seventh, I am astonished that such a beautiful site that was donated for purposes of a natural park has now been turned over to a private developer. There are so few such natural sites in the region, and this one deserves my support for its preservation as a public park space for this and coming generations. There are many more that I could share later, but that's 7 of them. On another note, I had an encounter with someone in a grocery store just a couple days ago who approached me and said, "I recognize you guys. Sorry, I just wanted to say, keep fighting for us." And I thought that was pretty unexpected and cool, and it kind of encourages me to keep speaking. So I asked that the county council and executive do work to restore the plans and funding for Conley Mill Park. Let's get the Department of Parks and Rec working on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, that concludes public comments. Council comments. Shane?
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and encourage people to always come out and stand to the podium and tell us what we need to know. Many of you have given me really good ideas, good advice. I appreciate it. Please keep coming. And anytime you want to call me, or, you know, some would say I don't answer my phone, but I do most of the time. But thanks for coming. Call me anytime.
Anybody? Jeff?
I'll go.
You guys, Rip?
Again, thanks for everybody that came to the meeting tonight and the ones that are watching on PAC 14. We had a vote tonight about the situation at the airport. Mr. Cannon, we've haggled back and forth for a number of weeks about the fire service agreement with the city of Salisbury. I've been getting a lot of calls from the folks. I represent a large area that's in that area, outside the city, but in the county. They get serviced. I would suggest, due to the fact that we can afford to do what we're doing with the airport, that we move ahead and finish fully funding to the county executive's recommendation. what the Salisbury needs to service the people of Wicomico County. I'd like to see that put on the agenda as soon as possible.
Jeff?
I want to echo the sentiment. Thank you all for coming out. We really appreciate when people come out and share their thoughts and their concerns, and it helps us in the decision process. We continue to deal with a lot of misinformation out there, and I guess I'll address one thing tonight. I've heard it several times, most recently at a recent council meeting, that now that the budget has been struck, that we were accused of increasing the council budget by 36%. So that didn't seem right to me, because I went through the budget probably, I don't know, 50, 60 times. I didn't see that number, didn't line up to me. So I went to wicomicocounty.org, which is a great resource for everybody to get information. And the math that I came up with was 2.38% is what we increased our budget. And that was due to increase in health insurance costs, things like that. We actually didn't increase any of our operating expenses. So I do encourage people to check their sources, and don't believe us. Go to the website, pick up the phone, call a council member, call the council office. We're happy to take any questions, send us an email. But verify your facts, and I do want to wish everybody a happy and safe 4th of July.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, I heard from Mr. Joe White about more involvement, and our commissions, I don't know if they're required to post when they're meeting and where they're meeting, and I don't know if that's feasible, if that makes any sense, but I don't know if that's worth a discussion to make sure people know that the public are welcome to come to these commissions. As Mr. Joe, actually, he goes to the Parks and Rec commissions regularly, and not everyone realizes that you can do that. And I don't know if that's a discussion that maybe we can have with somebody from the executive branch at all at a later date. Yeah.
Josh?
I just want to take a moment also to thank, of course, not just the folks who come out here today. I do appreciate that, but we don't get to say it enough. Thanks to the county employees. You know, we all, each one of us individually, either run into them at the grocery store or have folks call us. But you know, the Wicomico County employees really do work really hard, and they work through a lot. I do want to make sure if they're listening now or regardless that you know, let them know we really do appreciate that. I know it's not easy. The work in general, regardless of the politics or other kind of challenges or other things like that, but it's really important and it's really appreciated. So thank you, Wicomico County employees. And then other than that, just hope everyone has a nice, safe, happy 4th of July. And remember, don't use your own fireworks. Let the professionals do that. We are still under a burn ban, and that's still a big issue. Thank you.
He took it right out of my mouth. I was going to wish everyone a happy 4th of July as well, and the same exact thing pretty much. But anyway.
Under presidential comments, I'd just like to also thank everybody for being here tonight and the comments that were made. Joe, I recognize the city of Salisbury's sense of urgency in trying to get this funding, and we're not dragging our feet on it. I talked to the chief. We texted today because
we've drug our feet a long time.
He's staying on top of it, and we're not.
He's not the one with the money. We are.
I understand, Joe.
Right.
But in discussions with, you don't mind if I finish here, do you?
Okay.
But we had discussions with Ms. Hurley last week, and we're at this time still getting data together so that the council can make an informed decision as well. So we're not dragging our feet on this. We're certainly just making sure. There's a lot of complaints tonight about not knowing enough, not having enough information on time. So that's exactly what we're trying to do, is give you enough information so you can absorb it, so we can all make a very rational decision in reference to this very important issue.
Which one was that, John?
Excuse me?
Which issue was that?
I'm talking about the Salisbury Fire Department and the funding.
Because we didn't have much time to talk about the airport situation.
I get that, Joe. I think we already voted in favor of that. Yeah. Outside of that, I'd like to thank everybody for being here again and remind everybody, have a happy 4th of July. Willard's is having their celebration on July 3rd. It's a lot of fun over there. It starts at like 5 o'clock. but you can come anytime you want. Then the fireworks are at 9, so it's a long day and a long night, but it is a great time. Allen Parade is at 2 o'clock on the 4th, which is another really good one. They do it every year. Of course, you have the fireworks in Salisbury and the fireworks at Shorebirds on the 4th, and then Hebron has their fireworks on the 6th. So there's your schedule for the holidays, full of fireworks. That being said, I need to make a statement to adjourn, entertain a motion to adjourn from legislative session to go into open work session, followed by a closed work session pursuant to the general provisions article section 3-305B8 to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation to protect the county's legal position. Keep in mind the council will then reconvene in legislative session to consider resolution number 82-2024 regarding adding additional names to the opioid lawsuit. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting is adjourned. The first item on the open work session is a 5-year memorandum of understanding with the Wicomico Farm and Home Show.
Good evening. We're ready?
Steve, how are you?
Yes.
If you want to go, we're ready.
Okay, very good. Mr. President and members of the council, Steve Miller, I'm Director of Recreation, Parks, and Tourism. We're here tonight to discuss a possible 5-year MOU with the Farm and Home Show to conduct the Wicomico County Fair. We partnered with the Farm and Home Show beginning in 2017. We've kind of gone year to year. It's been a very good partnership. Both sides of the partnership play very important roles in conducting that event. And over the last 7 years, that event has become kind of a must-attend event in the county. It's become a great event. And so we're seeking to extend that for a 5-year term that would take us through the 2029 event. So I think you've been issued a copy of the draft of the MOU and be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I'm here with Tri Townsend, who's representing the Farm and Home Show.
Sorry. Get your own music to come.
Yeah.
Walk up.
You go, walk up, yeah. I have a question. Are there any motorized vehicles that we need to make sure we approve?
We'll put that on the list. I think we discussed coming once a year with those types of events.
Okay. I just didn't know because it's a 5-year agreement, so I didn't know if we just did it for the 5 years. But anyway.
Anybody else? Yes, Josh.
I just had a question. I didn't realize it, by the way, until I was reading this earlier, that is this an independent organization, Farm and Home Show Incorporated?
Wicomico Farm and Home Show is an independent corporation, and we host the fair, and we rebranded to the Wicomico Fair, which it was previously, going back to the history. Started off as a Wicomico Fair, fell apart during World War I era, and then the Farm and Show was recreated and took it over for an extended period of time, and then we rebranded it after the Chicken Festival ended, and we just started a whole new, rebirthing of it and growing, from a 2,000 attendee to over 15,000 attendees in a 3-day period.
Is this a for-profit or a nonprofit?
Nonprofit.
Very good.
We break even. Be happy.
Side note, I used to enter my 4-leaf clover collection when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. I would win every year and get my $13. It was a big deal.
It's increased, and there's an adult division you can join.
I'm coming back.
Check it out. Come on.
Anyone else? Questions? Anyone else? No. Not many questions. I mean, it's always been a really well-run program, and we really thank you for the job that you do. And I think it's good. Nothing wrong with getting it as an MOU. I think that makes a lot of sense as well. So where would we go from here?
I guess we'd come back for a resolution.
Yeah, I just want to verify with legal counsel, though, are you treating this as a lease? I know historically, some of these agreements have been like license agreements, and that was considered a lease. This is now an MOU, so are we
We'll bring it to council.
Yeah, but my question is, if it's a lease, then we have to advertise it for 3 weeks. If it's not considered a lease, then we can bring it back at the next meeting.
And it's a mixture.
Oh. Okay. Maybe I'll work that out with legal and then let council know.
You have any clarifications on that, Steve?
Typically, so going way back, yeah, we would title them MOUs, but I think we've been more recently doing them as license agreements, but I'll defer to Paul's office on that. So it's unique in that with the county itself has a very active role in the event. So in the MOU, it divides up the tasks and the duties. So we are very much partners in conducting the event. So I don't know if that changes the definition one way or the other, but I would think it's a license agreement, but I don't necessarily know.
Work it out.
Yeah.
All right. We have enough time, I think, to make it.
Yep.
Yeah, we have time, so that's good.
Yep.
Any other questions from anyone? No. All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Very good. Thank
you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Charlie.
Yep. Thanks, Troy.
How'd you get into that job, Try? How'd you get into this job?
I got lassoed. I was working as a vendor there, and then next thing you know.
Good luck. You'll do fine.
Next item we have on the agenda is the update on House Bill 805 in reference to cannabis. Mr. Illuminati is here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm sorry, let me pull my cord in.
You said it would be right back to this. So this past legislative session, there was an emergency bill passed to address zoning regulations for cannabis. There were some significant changes that we discussed that briefly. It was referred to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has done its diligent work, made some recommendations. We're going to walk through what those look like today. So this is the current law. It's permitted in the I-1, I-2 for grower processor. By special exception, the C1, C2, C3, I-1, and I-2. This is the current county code regulating cannabis, 1,000 feet of a pre-existing primary or secondary school in the state, 500 feet of a licensed child care center or other enumerated places, 1,000 feet of another cannabis business, or 300 feet of a residence. A cannabis on-site consumption establishment is prohibited within Wicomico County. A cannabis business not enumerated as permitted use in this section is prohibited within Wicomico County. And the distance is measured from parcel boundary to parcel boundary. So this was signed into law April 25th and became effective actually June 1st. So in red addresses the various sections that are in conflict with the current county law. So this time there was a definition for unduly burdensome, and it's anything that is greater than the more restrictive than what's already available. So here we see, last time there was discussion about, well, could a county increase or decrease around a school zone? Here it's made very clear it has to be 500 feet of a pre-existing primary or secondary school. Additionally, the state added the word pre-existing before playground, recreation center, library, public park. State added place of worship. Wicomico County was leading on that and already had place of worship as a protected place. There is an addition to allow originally 1,000 feet between any dispensary or cannabis business, but here not more than 1/2 mile. So that actually more than doubles the ability to segregate between the businesses. A political subdivision may not adopt an ordinance establishing zoning requirements for licensed dispensaries that are more restrictive than zoning requirements for a retailer dealer. That addresses alcohol, but we do not have a retail dealer in Wicomico County, in the county proper. They're all located within the city limits. So there's not an issue there. In F, a political subdivision may not adopt an ordinance establishing a zoning requirement for a licensed grower cultivating cannabis exclusively outdoors in an area zoned only for agricultural use that is more restrictive. And a political subdivision may, by ordinance, establish a distance limitation for dispensaries up to 100 feet of an area zoned for residential use, or to apply the same alcohol standards. So last time the state didn't even address residents. The council added 300 feet. Here, the state took that from 300, took the recommendation to protect residences, but limited to 100 feet. Looking at what's highlighted in yellow, these are the recommendations of the Planning Commission. So the Planning Commission met in May. There was a public hearing in June, and then a formal recommendation for these changes. Most of them are just to comply with state law. So striking 1,000 feet, making that 500 feet, inserting the pre-existing before the A2 enumerated places, increasing from 1,000 feet to 2,640 feet or a half mile, striking from 300 feet to the 100 feet of a pre-existing residence as required by state law. Addressing the outdoor still keeping a prohibition on on-site consumption establishments. There was nothing in the state law that addressed on-site consumption establishments, and removing that ability of the political subdivision to prohibit on-site consumption. So the Planning Commission is not recommending to address subsection B. Subsection C remains unchanged, but add the part for exclusively outdoor cannabis cultivators. So that's added. Then, and we'll talk about this next in the greatest section, is the distance, the separation requirement. When we look through the maps, we'll see that parcel boundary to parcel boundary is in violation of state law. So the recommendation is to adopt how the drug-free school zones are measured. So from the boundary of the real property owned or leased by an entity up above, a primary accessory structure of a cannabis business may not locate within the respective separation areas. And then finally, the state law explicitly requires that if there's going to be a reduction, that has to be provided for. So normally the Board of Appeals has that power pursuant to the county code, but here the state law required that there be some authorizing language to allow the Board of Appeals to modify the separation requirement. Any modification of a separation requirement would be by special exception, which would require a hearing. So the public would be notified, the property would be posted, all of those in the surrounding area would receive personal letters from the county informing them of the special exception application. So here we see in the dark gray inner circle, that represents the current 1,000 feet. The green right in the center, that is the current dispensary. Now this is all in the city, but it allows you to see how, if this was in the county, how this would, the current proposed legislation as expanded would play out. So the green is the current dispensary. Right outside of the green, we see that's where the Walgreens is located towards the west on Mount Herman Road. Towards the east, right across from outside of that, is the Burger King. Now, when you expand to the half mile, right outside of that is where the Rite Aid is located. On the western side of the county, it's right where Y Middle is located. So you can see the greater expansion that doubles the coverage area. So last summer when there was and into the fall and this winter, the discussion was about the current dispensary to the Burger King. Was that great enough? Should it be less? Should it be more? 1,000 feet was all state law provided at that time. Now the state law allows up to a half mile. So that would, to give you an idea, allow one, again, if this was in the county, where the current dispensary is located, and then where the Rite Aid at the intersection of Mount Herman and that West College Park is. So that's the buffer measuring. This is the separation distance So the current method is parcel boundary to parcel boundary. We have not had any explicit applications in the county, where somebody is challenging or trying to take advantage of this, but there were individuals who were applying for licenses through the state, and when proposed properties were looked at and staff ran them through, basically parcel boundary to parcel boundary became impossible to allow cannabis zoning. So looking at the current method, if a possible cannabis facility, so we look, all what is in red is what is zoned I2, but with the green overlay with the residential parcels, if a facility tried to locate in any of these areas, the light green would be prohibited, the red with the X's would be prohibited, and it makes it basically just this southern part near Naylor Mill, again, in a hypothetical area to show. This area was selected not because there is an applicant for that area, but because it shows it's a good representation of when a residence appears on what's otherwise a parcel that's zoned I2, it eliminates the entire parcel. So the proposed method is derived from the drug-free school zone located in the Maryland Annotated Code, which measures from the property boundary of the real property owned or leased by the non-cannabis business to the cannabis business. So when we apply that here, we see that all of a sudden a lot more areas that were previously in with the red, with the hash marks through them, now become available. And here's a side-by-side comparison. Again, there's not an application for this area, but this allows to show based that a lot of the additional parcels are now available because it's not the parcel boundary to parcel boundary limitation. So this recommendation came through the Planning Commission. There was public hearing. There were multiple meetings, lots of great discussion. Councilmember Holloway sits on that. He offered great suggestions on how to protect the public, but also to comport with state law. The whole commission did a wonderful job on that, while still expressing his disdain for cannabis through the process.
And I've got another one, and I've had a number of people contact me, some businesses in an area, homeless shelters. There's no regulation about homeless shelters, right? As far as holding distance from homeless shelters.
I believe there is.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Because there's a planned cannabis store going close to a homeless shelter, and some of the local businesses are just going to see, an increase in their problems they're already having, they think, with this. So I told them, I said, well, the best thing the homeless shelter could do is to turn into a church, and then do it quickly. So that might take care of their problem, whether it would or not. I don't know.
Definitely something to look at.
Can we add something like that?
The proper place to add that would be in this A2 section to add whatever phrase would best capture that. We'd have to look back and see if homeless shelters kind of already covered by a different term in the county code. That's something that staff can look at.
Nothing that I had thought of, but apparently these businesses are very concerned that this is going to just accelerate, with the problems they're having now.
Is this the one on Route 13 near the Acme?
Yeah, I didn't want to say, but
that's in the city. I mean, it's
Yeah.
still something that the county can consider.
Yeah.
But we're only addressing
the county.
County zone.
Yeah, so that would be a city issue.
Correct.
Correct, okay. That's what I think that's what I told them. That would be more up to the city than us.
And I believe the city's going to be looking at addressing these concerns. So this is all in effect now, but as I said, the county has not received an application for somebody to challenge the current code. But this is why, as you know, Planning Commission worked very diligently on this to bring this in an expedited manner, why I requested that there be a work session as soon as the director's report was ready last week, presented to you so that the first reading can be as soon as possible. So going back, I guess that's the end of that presentation. Are there any other additional questions?
So, go ahead, Jeff.
I just got a statement. I find it interesting that a cannabis business can be a whole lot closer to a school or childcare facility than it can be to another cannabis business. A whole lot, 500 versus half a mile. That's interesting.
Reduce competition.
Yeah.
With
Business is more important, right, apparently.
If we look, and again, this is a city issue, not a county issue, but when you look at Wicomico High School on this map, the buffer would measure from that uppermost parcel outward. So it's not going to be from the front steps of the school. It's going to be from the outer edge of the parcel boundary.
Yeah.
So that will hopefully expand that distance because children can be up to that outer edge.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Josh.
Yeah, so of course, Salisbury, we're in Wicomico County, Salisbury specifically is known for its Swiss cheese kind of a map where you're county here, city there, county here, city there. Specifically with that, I guess Orford, I suppose, could also have their own. Is there, theoretically, if you had a city property, one door, 2 doors down is the county property, and one of those is a city dispensary or city property, and 60 feet over is a county property, they could be located together by current rules and law, correct?
Current interpretation
Because this is only for county.
of the county code is that county code carries over into the city. So in the context of in the city, right on the line, there's a church. That, though it's not in the county, that 500 feet would apply to that church.
About another dispensary or another cannabis business?
It would apply in the same way. It's the county's staffs, and not just for cannabis, but throughout all the separation requirements in the code, is that the county code transfers into the city to provide those same protections to the city residents. It would be on the city to extend that same courtesy to a Wicomico County property. I believe that is the application and how their interpretation is, but I cannot speak to that.
And just one other quick question. Do you know, this is more just curious, with your knowledge, do you know of any other jurisdiction in the state that is allowing on-site consumption?
I have not seen it.
Just curious, yeah, no worries. Yeah.
Not aware on the lower shore to mid-shore of any. There may be.
I know some Ocean City folks were looking at that as a way to do, or even potentially as like that, out on a tiki boat kind of a thing or something like that. But I think then the Ocean City then spoke up and got
That was
upset.
one additional, it's not part of this, but I believe the municipalities are allowed to decide their own on-site consumption rules. That was a vague with the last round of legislation, but that is more affirmative. But to my knowledge, I cannot think of any municipalities that have allowed it. And so.
I had a question, Andrew, on the lattice section there in the very center on the proposed map. The red, I guess it's industrial zoned, available for a cannabis facility, but it excludes a dispensary, so that would be maybe a growing or a packaging facility. But where the lattice is in the middle, it says possible cannabis facility. What does that mean? Does that mean that there can be a dispensary right there next to the Henry Parker Sports Complex?
The buffer would still apply to there. I think that was in this hypothetical trying to show if a facility was to locate there. That's not a parcel in and of itself. So I'm not sure why the reason staff put that there, but as there has not been an application to put one there at all.
All right,
So
this
it's
is all-
not based on a real.
It's all hypothetical. Okay.
Correct. This area was selected just because of the I-1, I-2, but with the residential overlays. And there is a park and there's other protected areas that were involved. So it was a good way to just sort of find a lot of the various boundaries and show how they would be applied.
So would you be suggesting that based on this map alone, there are other tweaks that are necessary for Wicomico County to make?
The recommendation of the Planning Commission is that the current proposed law comports with state law and provides Wicomico County residents the greatest protection that state law would allow.
But it still will allow this particular scenario to transpire.
It's possible, but as I said, that's not a parcel, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because you can't have, the county code was recently corrected to address the greater than or less than percentage of a property being split to different zoning districts. They have to now choose. So here we see it's split I-2. I believe that white is a buffer off of the Henry Parker complex. So that represents that 500 feet and puts the rest of that area in play. So where that cannabis facility is on the proposed, I think where it's still sliced out is it's prohibited because it falls within the white.
Okay, thanks.
So I believe the planning director has submitted her report. The request is that this be set for first reading at the next meeting and schedule public hearing as shortly thereafter, just because the law is already, the state law is already effective. If an applicant came in tomorrow, they could challenge the current county code because it does not meet the state requirements. Staff has, worked with various applicants to explain that this is getting corrected. If they want to begin, hypothetical areas based on the proposed amendments, applicants could begin to submit. But to my knowledge, there haven't been any, there's still outstanding awards to be made, and these entrepreneurs are just being proactive.
Ms. Hurley, we'll have time to get it in that.
For the next meeting, we can do an introduction.
That meeting, okay. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion to adjourn to go into closed work session.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Favor? Okay, we're reconvening as Wicomico County Council Legislative Session 2024-15 for July 2nd, 2024. The final item on the agenda is entertaining a motion to approve resolution number 82-2024, which is to name additional defendants in the opioid lawsuit. And that's, can I get a motion? Got a motion from Shane, second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor of resolution 82-2024, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Illuminati, Mr. Wilbur. Mr. Luffman, entertain a motion to it.
I'm sorry, just to be clear.
Yes.
The motion that's being voted on is the one that has Indivior, Mylan, and Zydus, and not the one that was in the briefing book that the public may have seen.
Yeah, right, okay, thank you for that clarification, yes. Yes, very true. Okay.
Thank you.
The resolution does not need an amendment, am I correct?
It does not.
Thank you, I thought so. All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.